Good day, coaches. Welcome back. Today I'll be looking at section number 7, which is a core section of this unit standard that you are doing. And section 7 addresses practice plans. One of the key duties of a coach is to plan practice sessions or is to put together a practice plan. So when you put together a practice plan, there are a number of things that you have to do. And today I'll just focus on those things. And before I even get to that, I want us to look at, I've sort of found some information that is not even in your learner guide. It's just additional information just to give you more understanding. So I came up with something that I call the tips for a practice plan. Some of the good things that could help you. And you'll see it when you go through the slides that there are several tips that one could use. The first one is to think through the session before you start. When you arrange a session, you have to think about what you are going to do. Meaning there should be no day whereby you show up at a training session and you've got no idea of what you want to do. So that's why we advise that coaches must have their coaching logs or coaching diaries. That's where now you diarize your weekly plan, you diarize your monthly plan, you diarize your quarterly plan, or sometimes even your whole year plan. It should be written somewhere so that you know exactly what you are going to do each and every single day. So the first thing on the tips is think through the session before you start. The second thing is you need to think about the objective of each session. If you are having a session with your players, you have to answer this question that today at the practice session, what will be my objectives? In other words, what is it that you want to achieve on that day? Do you want to improve on flexibility of the players? Do you want to improve on their strength? Do you want to improve on team building? Do you want to improve their life skills? What is it that you want to do? So every training session must have some sort of an aim. Number 3, you have to think about the duration of each and every session. How long will it be? Because you have to plan. Will it take 30 minutes? Will it take 20 minutes? Will it take an hour? All those things you have to figure out. That's why every coach, you have noticed when you work, those of you who have worked with coaches, that coaches often have a stopwatch and a whistle hanging around their neck. They have their stopwatch because they're trying to control the time and to make sure that everything is done according to the time that they have set for that activity. The next one, what equipment is needed? When you plan a session, the equipment that you bring to the session is the equipment that your session requires. So it is important as a coach to plan your session because the type of session that you have planned, it tells you exactly what equipment you need to bring to that particular session. And the next thing is the type of session that you are planning to do. You have to be very much intentional about that. I think I've mentioned already that what is your plan? Are you planning on doing speed? Are you planning on doing strength? Are you planning on doing some drills? What is your plan for that session? So that there is no session that is just arranged. All sessions are geared towards improving something. The last one on this slide is think about the grouping of the participants. If you are working, let's say, with 20 players, you have to look at the group that you have and think about what you are going to do today because some drills might not work with 20 people. So you may need to group the team maybe into groups of 5, that type of thing. But these are the things you have to figure out before you start the session. You cannot be grouping players when they are there. No, this is something that you must figure out before you arrive at a session. Now, the next thing I want us to look at on the next slide are examples of the sessions that as a coach you could do with your players because there are many sessions that you can do with the players. One of the sessions you can have with your players is a planning session. A planning session, usually there is no activity. You could be sitting in a boardroom, you could be sitting in the changing room. That's when you sort of brainstorm what maybe you're going to do for a season. So you can even ask your players that, guys, tomorrow everybody bring a pen and a notebook. We'll just plan. We'll just sit down and talk. There will be nothing physical. Nobody will run. It's just a planning session. So talking to the players is part of the game. Many coaches, they tend to feel that talking is not coaching. No, you cannot always be running. There are times whereby we are not running, we are just strategizing, whereby you sit, get to know the players, you ask them questions, and find out if they even understand the mission of the club or the sport organization that you are coaching for. The next session can be technical or a sport specific skills. Now, there can be sessions whereby you are doing some sport specific skills. It could be a specific drill that will improve the performance of the players. For example, if you are a soccer coach, you can decide that today we are doing dribbling, tomorrow we are doing shooting, that other day we are doing passing or long passes or short passes. So those things must be planned and they must be practiced accordingly. You can have a flexibility session. This is very important, whereby you decide that maybe every Wednesday we do only flexibility. We warm up and we stretch. You can have an endurance session whereby players improve on the stamina. Endurance, if you are coaching footballers, for them to run for 90 minutes, they need a lot of stamina. And stamina is not something they will just have, it's something that you must intentionally train on for them to develop. You can have a strength session because players must do strength exercises. They make them to be strong because if they don't have strength, it becomes very, very difficult for them to stand opposition. Of course, if you talk about strength, it depends on the type or the sporting code that they are playing because all activities are different. For example, a strength that is required for netball might not be the same strength that is required in basketball. So, strength is developed according to the nature of the sport that you are training for. That's why, as a coach, you have to pick a sport and specialize on that sport because all sporting codes have got different needs, dynamics, and specifications. You might want to work on your speed and power, which is players must have the ability to sprint, especially if they are involved in sporting codes that require a lot of speed. So these things, they are not just gained without an intention of gaining them. You train on them and you gain them. And finally, something that is very much ignored is a life skills session. There are times whereby you don't need to train, you need to talk to the players about their life, talk to them about their careers, what they're going to do when they retire. All those things are important because many players, you have seen it on TV, many players who have retired, many players who are no longer playing sports professionally. Many of them, when they go back to their communities, they don't have work to do because when they were playing sports, the coach never advised them that one day their career would end and therefore they must try and have something to do when they retire from sport because the sports career, some of you might have played some sports career is very short. Many players, those who retire at old age according to sports, might retire maybe at 39, at 40, at 42, which is quite young. But in sport, 40, 42 is old. So if you retired at 40, you have a whole life ahead of you. By all means, you need to have something else that you can do. That's why it is very important to have life skills training so that the players can be encouraged to do other things rather than just playing sports. Now let's look at the session plan, the detailed session plan. Meaning now, how does one plan a session plan? Now I've got a number of things here. The first thing is that as a coach, you must have a coaching calendar. Like I've mentioned earlier on, a coaching calendar begins with a daily plan. Every day you meet the players, you must know exactly what to do. The coaching plan must have a weekly plan. In a period of 7 days, what are you going to do with the players? This also from 7 days or from 1 week, it goes to a month, which has got 4 weeks. It goes to a quarter, which has got 3 months. And it goes to 1 year, which has got 12 months. Now, like I said earlier on, all this information must be put into writing. Now, this even helps coaches maybe when you've resigned from a club you used to coach. The coach who takes over you can look at your annual plan and see how much work we have covered or how much work we have not done so that he can just take over and continue from you. Now, the next thing I want to look at and I want to emphasize is think about the safety. The safety of the athletes is very important. The safety of the kids, if you are coaching kids, is very important. And I want us to look at some of the key things that are related to the safety of your job or the safety of the training environment, because as a coach, it is your responsibility to ensure that everyone that is at your session is safe. If you are coaching kids, for example, when parents release their children to you, they are entrusting you with the safety of the children. And therefore, as a coach, it must be at your best interest to ensure that these kids are safe, because should something happen to them whilst they are under my care, the parents could blame me. And it can even become a court case whereby a coach is sued for negligence or something that the coach maybe did not understand, or a safety measure that the coach did not take. So if you are not careful, it will be very easy to end up in court one day. So we have to apply all these safety measures. So I'll just talk you through about 5 things that you can do to ensure that there is safety. Number one is the safety of the environment. The safety of the environment could talk to issues whereby if you are using a training ground, maybe that does not belong to you, you may need to do some inspections of the environment. You may need to check if the field I'm using is in good condition. You may need to check if there are no wires, there are no stones, there are no broken objects, because should somebody get hurt at the session, you can be um, penalized, or you may need to come and answer because somebody got hurt under your supervision. The safety of the equipment. Whatever equipment that you use, you need to ensure that the equipment is fit for use. The equipment is the right sizes, and the equipment has been cleaned, and therefore the equipment can be utilized by the athletes. The safety of the participants, extremely important. Make sure that these guys are safe. They've done all that they needed to do to be safe. You've screened them. Those who might have some underlying medical conditions, you are aware of them. I think some time ago we made an example of a player who's got asthma, someone who's asthmatic who plays in your team. One of the things you can do is to be aware that he is asthmatic. Once you are aware, make sure that he has his pump close by, because should he have an asthmatic attack, you may need to intervene during that time. Safety of your job, like I said, if something happens, you could lose your job. So as a coach, it is very important to make sure that all the safety measures are in place at all times. Safety of the session, make sure that the players don't hurt each other. So the session must be safe, and one of the things you can do is to encourage fair play. Now, let's look at the step-by-step session plan. Now, if you're doing a step-by-step session plan, there are a couple of things you must do, which I'll take you through. Number one, when you plan sessions as a coach, let's say you have to coach a group of athletes. Number one, you have to identify participants. Number two, you have to conduct the screening. I will take you through all this in the next slide. Number three, identify a decent training facility and equipment. The next one, start your sessions with warm up every session. Do some stretches after warm up. This is very important. And after that, you can run your session. After your session, you have to do your cool down. And after cool down, you have to review every session. Now, let's look at the first thing that I mentioned, which I said, identify participants. Now, if you are a coach, let's assume you are forming a netball club or a football club or a basketball club. The first thing you need to have a club is to identify the participants. The participants, it means who are the people who are going to play in your club. So you have to identify these people. And I've listed on the slide number of things that you could use as a guide to identify participants. Number one, you need to look at the age. You are aware that in sport we separate ages. You need to take a decision that as a coach, I want to focus on under 12. I want to focus on under 8. I want to focus on under 18. Or I want to build some sort of a senior team whereby it's adults of different ages. The second thing, you need to look at the gender. The team that I want to coach, do I want to work with boys or I want to work with girls? So all these questions you should be able to answer. The next thing is the level of participation. Do I want to coach juniors or grassroots level? Or am I looking at a team that is professional or semi-professional? The next thing you need to look at as a coach is what sporting code am I interested in? Do I want to coach football? Do I want to coach cricket? Do I want to coach basketball? So you have to look at all these and make a decision. Now I'm talking to you, or I'm assuming that you are somebody who's doing coaching and somebody who's starting up. Maybe you are yet to decide on what to coach. The next one, we're looking at how to conduct screening. Athletes must be screened. Now, before you screen, you need to generate a screening form. Now, remember, screening, we use screening to sort of identify if the players are healthy enough to embark on a vigorous physical activity. So there are basic screening forms that you can design, or you can even consult somebody who comes from a sports science background to assist you. Players must be screened. Screening reveals a lot of medical conditions about the people that you are coaching. And never assume that they are healthy because they look healthy. You'll be very surprised. Let all participants complete the screening form. Those who are underage, you need their parents or any legal guardian to complete the screening form on their behalf. The next thing, get to know the parents of the kids. Some of the things the kids might not tell you, but if you ask the parents, because the parents have got the medical history of their children in their heads, so they will tell you whatever that you need to know about the children. Don't ignore medical conditions. If a child has a condition, as much as that condition might not prohibit the child from participating, but at least as a coach, you must be aware that one of my kids has got this condition. And therefore, if this condition manifests in my session, this is what I will do. And if you have a player or an athlete who has a condition, I would advise that as a coach, you go and learn about that condition so that maybe one day your athlete is attacked by epilepsy or is attacked by heart attack or he has asthmatic attack or any of these things. If you don't know what to do, that's why we recommend now that all coaches should have basic first aid level 1 so that you can do basic first aid on your athlete. Now, the next thing we're looking at warm-up. We did speak about warm-up on the previous presentation. Warm-up is important. When you start your session, you begin with warm-up. The duration of warm-up, as I said on the previous presentation, it depends on the number of players you've got. It depends, sometimes can depend on the weather. In warm weather conditions, you may not need to extend your warm-up, but in a very cold winter day, you may need to do more warm-up because the players, they need more time to be warm. So the type of activity to do during warm-up, it depends on the sport. That's what we call sport-specific warm-up, and that's what we call general or generic warm-up. That's when you warm up the whole body. But sport-specific warm-up, that's when you warm up the muscles or the key muscles that are directly involved in the sport that you are coaching. Now, after warm-up, we move to stretches. Stretches are important. The safest stretches that you can do is static stretches. Now, when the body is warm, you can follow up with some stretches. Perhaps you can do about 10-15 minutes of stretches. Once again, this depends on the number of the people that you are coaching. Now, after warm up, you can move to the main session. The main session now, that's when you decide on what you are going to do on that day. Are you doing some drills? Are you doing some conditioning? Are you doing some passing or dribbling? Whatever that you are doing. Are you doing a mini game or some match? Whatever that you are doing, it can be done after warm up, immediately after warm up. Then after warm up, of course, you've got the cool down. I mean, after the main session, you've got the cool down. The cool down can be 5 minutes, it can be 10 minutes, depending on the number of players you've got. And I think we did send you a video of a cool down. And I'll leave it here for now. And if you have any questions, please feel free to write to us. You've got our academic email address, and we promise you we do get back to students within 24 hours. Thank you so much.